Disney has been trying their very best to market The Little Mermaid, and while the opening box office predictions are looking pretty solid for Memorial Day weekend, negative news is stacking up for this film because the critics have given it a very mediocre 70%, and people are also roasting Disney for making Ariel blue in the Chinese poster. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon or a supporter via YouTube memberships. So I wanted to start off with this Cosmic Book News article, The Little Mermaid drowning on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, we knew that ultimately there were going to be critics who would put their careers on the line to defend this movie. They don't care what we think about them or their score. They just want to look good, and they want Disney to absolutely love them. I've had to roast Grace Randolph a few times when it comes to this movie because she basically said anyone criticizing it is racist. She said that if you find any sort of problem with this movie, you should look inside of yourself because you're the problem. And there are tons of critics just like her that, just want to defend Disney, want to defend this movie, even if it's not very good. And there are a lot of them on Rotten Tomatoes who are trying to bump up the score, but there are a lot of negatives that the critics have with this film. As you can see on Rotten Tomatoes, it is currently sitting with 102 reviews at a 70%. Now, this score isn't the worst score we've ever seen, but it is one of the lowest for the live action adaptations that Disney has done, and there are a lot of criticisms here. Now, of course, I typically do not trust critics. Half the time they say a movie is fantastic and users think it is absolutely trash, or vice choices that they made. And it seems like while a lot of the critics, and it's important to point out that the 70% is the all critics, and when you go to the top critic, it's sitting at a measly 45%, which is just not looking good. I'm not going to be able to read all 105 reviews, but let's check out just some of them. Viewers, like the kids at their meal times, will simply refute unappealing. Now, the aesthetics have been something that I have harshly criticized with this movie, but that is also something that critics are saying seem to fit. I know a few days ago the full soundtrack went on to social media like YouTube, and people were absolutely destroying the Scuttlebutt song from Awkwafina, and it is just one of the most cringe songs I've ever heard, and I hate using that word. But it's like they're trying to show stronger than it is now. Neither has my wearied sense of deja vu. What's on screen too often feels like one second-rate imitation, and then one of joyless anxiety. That is not good news for Disney. No one wants to hear that this remake is a, joyless, saying that it's like an empty, broken-hearted take on Indiana Jones. Very different than the North American one because they covered her in this odd blue hue. The North American poster, as you can see, is on the left. Everything around her is blue, but they have decided to completely cover it by adding this weird blue filter over it. But really, this is more proof that, yeah, those people exist, but the people at the top only care about money. They know what sells and where it's gonna sell, and they don't even stand behind the woke decisions they make. They heavily edited the color of the poster because they think it's going to sell the movie better to Chinese customers, and Disney has done this with plenty of other films. The Black Panther poster had Chadwick Boseman wearing his full panther mask to cover his face. John Boyega's face was shrunk on the Force Awakens poster. Unfortunately, Disney has done this several times to Black actors. It's also important to point out that this movie is tracking terribly in China right now too. The Little Mermaid poised to flounder as Disney's worst 2023 opening in China. I felt like it was important to point all of this out because there are people that will go to bat for Disney, that will do anything to defend them and have praised their decision to cast a black actress as Ariel. But while again, there are some people who care about the message at the company, the ones at the very top really don't. They just care about how much cash this film is going to make them. This is why you shouldn't simp for companies like this. As someone with a lot of nostalgia for the '89 animated, there was not a single ounce of excitement left in my body after weeks of hearing Halle Bailey attack critics as racists, as the media doing the same exact thing. After all of the awful teasers and trailers, I just felt no excitement for this movie anymore. If you're excited for it, that's awesome. I hope you watch it. I hope that you really love it and enjoy it, and I hope it's everything you were expecting. But right now, the critics are not loving it, given it is drowning on Rotten Tomatoes. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this and of course found it important and informative, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.